We are confronting the architectural anomaly of the Trilithon, where 3,000-ton limestone monoliths defy conventional engineering logic. We must dissect how ancient masons achieved microscopic precision during transport and placement without iron tools or pulleys. By analyzing these colossal foundations, we expose a sophisticated, lost mechanical legacy predating known Roman capabilities. Standing in the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, the air is often thick with the scent of cedar and parched earth. Here, in a place the Romans called Heliopolis, the city of the sun, lies a mystery that makes the Great Pyramid of Giza look like a preliminary rehearsal. When you first walk onto the platform of the Temple of Jupiter, your brain struggles with the scale. It's a cognitive dissonance. You see columns that soar 60 feet into the air, but then you look down. Beneath the Roman grandeur is a foundation that seems to belong to a different world entirely. A world of giants, or perhaps a world of engineers whose brilliance has been swallowed by the sands of time. Part 1. The stones that stayed behind. To understand the impossible, we have to start where the journey began, the quarry. It's located about half a mile from the temple complex. Imagine the scene thousands of years ago. The sun beating down on the limestone, the rhythmic clink, clink, clink of hammers, though hammers feels like an insult to the task at hand. In this quarry sits a block known as the Hajar al-Hibla, or the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. For centuries, it was considered the largest worked stone on the planet. It is a beast of limestone, weighing an estimated 1,000 tons. To give you a mental frame of reference, that's roughly the weight of 2 Boeing 747s, fully loaded. But here's the kicker, it's not even the biggest one anymore. In 2014, archaeologists from the German Archaeological Institute dug a little deeper nearby and found a third block, partially buried. It weighs approximately 1,650 tons. And no, you don't have to replay that part. It really happened. 1,650 tons. It's 19 meters long and 6 meters wide. When you stand next to it, you don't feel like a tourist. You feel like an ant. The stone is perfectly squared, its edges still sharp despite the millennia. It sits there, partially detached from the bedrock, as if the workers just stepped away for a lunch break and never came back. It raises the first, most haunting question of Baalbek. Why? Why would anyone, even with the ego of an emperor, attempt to move something so massive that it challenges the very laws of friction? Part 2. The Trilithon, the weight of the world. If the stones in the quarry are the what-ifs, the Trilithon is the they did. The Trilithon consists of 3 massive stones integrated into the western retaining wall of the Temple of Jupiter. Each of these weighs about 800 tons. They aren't sitting on the ground. They are elevated 20 feet up in the air, resting on a layer of slightly smaller stones. Now let's talk about the microscopic precision mentioned earlier. You've probably heard the cliché about not being able to fit a credit card between stones in ancient walls. At Baalbek, that's not a cliché. It's a frustrating reality for modern engineers. And these 800-ton blocks are fitted together so tightly that you can't even slide a razor blade between them. Think about the physics of that for a second. To get a fit that tight, you can't just drop the stone into place. You have to adjust it. You have to slide it back and forth, shave off a millimeter here, a centimeter there. But how do you nudge an 800-ton block? If you used wooden rollers, the go-to explanation in history books, the rollers would be crushed into sawdust the moment the weight was applied. The PSI, pounds per square inch, exerted by 800 tons on a wooden log exceeds the structural integrity of even the hardest oak. If you used a ramp, the ramp would have to be miles long and made of a material harder than the stone itself to keep from collapsing. The Romans were incredible engineers. We know this. And they built the Colosseum, the Pantheon, and the aqueducts. But nowhere else in the entire Roman Empire, from the edge of Scotland to the banks of the Euphrates, did they ever move a stone even half this size. The largest Roman obelisk in Rome weighs about 330 tons. That's impressive. But it's not 800, and it's certainly not 1,650. Part 3. The mechanical void. This is where the mainstream narrative starts to show its cracks. The standard archaeological view is that the Romans built the entire complex during the 1st century AD. They argue that the Romans used a combination of capstans, pulleys, and sheer grit. But let's do the math. To move an 800-ton block using Roman capstans, which were essentially man-powered winches, you would need thousands of men working in perfect synchronization. You would need a forest's worth of timber for the scaffolding and levers, but the logistics of fitting thousands of men around a single stone in a narrow quarry path, it doesn't add up. It's a literal too many cooks situation, except the cooks are trying to move a mountain without an engine. There is a theory, proposed by some researchers, that the foundation, the megalithic part, is much older than the Romans. This theory suggests the Romans arrived at Baalbek, saw these impossible stones already in place, and said, "This looks like a great spot for a temple." They built their Jupiter temple on top of a pre-existing, much older platform. If you look at the stones, there's a visible difference in weathering. The Roman columns are worn, yes, but the foundation stones look like they've survived an entire geological epoch. They have the deep, rounded pitting of thousands of years of erosion that the upper Roman layers simply don't share. Could there have been a lost mechanical legacy? We see hints of it across the globe: Giza, Tiwanaku, Ollantaytambo, sites where the stones are too big, the joints too tight, and the technology required to move them is suspiciously absent from the historical record. Part 4. The friction problem. Let's get technical for a moment. To move the stone of the pregnant woman, you have to overcome static friction. If you're pulling that stone across the ground, the force required is gargantuan. Even if you placed it on a sledge and greased the path with animal fat, you're looking at a force requirement that would snap any hemp rope ever manufactured in Antiquity. Modern cranes? We have them now. And the LR13000 is one of the most powerful crawler cranes in the world. It can lift 3,000 tons. But to do that, it requires massive counterweights, a reinforced concrete pad, and a team of specialized engineers. The Romans, or whoever preceded them, were doing this on dirt and limestone bedrock. There is a persistent whisper in the fringe of archaeology about vibratory levitation or acoustic engineering. It sounds like science fiction. The idea that sound or frequency could somehow nullify gravity or soften stone. And while there's zero empirical evidence that the ancients had sonic screwdrivers, the fact that we have to resort to such wild theories just to explain how they moved these stones is a testament to how impossible the reality is. Part 5. The human element, the architects of the sun. Who were these people? If it wasn't the Romans, was it the Phoenicians, the Canaanites? Local legends in Lebanon are far more colorful than the textbooks. One legend says the fortress was built by Cain, the son of Adam, to hide from the wrath of God. Another says it was the work of giants or jinn under the command of King Solomon. These stories are a cultural way of saying, we have no idea how humans did this. When you touch the surface of the stones, they feel strangely warm. The limestone has a high quartz content. In the silence of the Bekaa Valley, you can almost imagine the vibration of the site. It wasn't just a temple, it was a statement. A statement that the physical world was something to be mastered, not feared. But the mastery was lost. After the 1st century, the secret of moving 1,000-ton blocks vanished. We entered the Middle Ages, and where we struggled to move 20-ton blocks for cathedrals. It's as if humanity took a giant leap forward in engineering, hit a ceiling, and then fell back down into the dirt for 1,000 years. Part 6. The Modern Perspective. Today, tourists climb over the stone of the pregnant woman to take selfies. They walk along the Trilithon, rarely looking down at the seams between the blocks. We are a society obsessed with the new, yet we are standing on the shoulders of giants whose names we've forgotten. If we accept the Roman theory, we have to admit they possessed a secret of leverage or mechanical advantage that was never written down and never used again. If we accept the lost civilization theory, we have to rewrite the entire timeline of human progress. Neither option is comfortable. One forces us to admit that the Romans were far more magical in their engineering than we give them credit for. The other forces us to admit that we are a species with amnesia, living in the ruins of a much more advanced past. The truth of Baalbek is likely buried beneath the dust and the debris of the temple floor. It's in the tool marks that don't match Roman chisels. It's in the sheer audacity of a stonemason looking at a 1,600-ton slab of bedrock and saying, "I can move that." We must look at these stones, not as puzzles to be solved, but as mirrors. They reflect a time when human ambition wasn't limited by the possible. They remind us that the limits of our technology are often just the limits of our imagination. The Trilithon isn't just a wall, it's a challenge. It's a massive, limestone question mark that has stood for 2,000, perhaps 10,000 years, waiting for us to be smart enough to figure out how it got there. As you stand there, watching the sun set over the Bekaa valley, the shadows of the Jupiter columns stretch out across the platform. The stones turn a deep golden orange. And in that light, for just a moment, the impossible seems a little more real. You realize that we aren't the first ones to dream big. We're just the ones who forgot how the dream was built. And no, you don't have to replay that part. It really happened.